and privilege actually to be here and to present to such a very diverse audience, experienced audience, some of the activities we have deployed in the Netherlands in the area of translational medicine. My talk, next 15 or 20 minutes or so, is first I will try to familiarize yourself what we have done over the last couple of years and what the landscape is, and particular in the foundation that I'm representing today, which is the Center for Translational Molecular Medicine, and what it is I will go to in a minute. Before I do that, as you all know, the Netherlands is a very small country. It's very condensed, so distances are extremely short. We have 8 university medical centers that are pretty much working on the same level. There's a big difference, for instance, with the situation here in the United States, where you have a large diversity in the quality and the intensity of medical research. It's pretty much 8 centers that are in the same playing field, and of course on subspecialties they have their own strengths and weaknesses. Everything is very close, and that means that there's a pretty well organized situation, for instance, with regards to collecting patient cohorts. And there's some other examples as well as we go to the presentation. So the area that we're going to focus on today is what in the Netherlands has been organized in the area between basic sciences and actually the implementation of the basic knowledge into the marketplace. This is the translational challenges that there's a lot of talk about. NIH is heavily involved here in the United States, of course. This is more the global problem. Some facts: over the last couple of years, more than €1 billion has been invested in what we call public-private partnerships, and I put within brackets here patients as well. More and more we see the importance of getting patient advocacy groups involved in actually steering our types of research, and that's an integral part of what we do in these public partnerships. In life sciences, there are 3 of those partnerships active. The one I'm gonna focus on is the Center for Translational Molecular Medicine, and that's really about diagnostics, imaging, companion diagnostics, the theme of today. For completeness, there's 2 others as well, which is TIA Pharma, which is dedicated to drug development, and we have an institution for biomaterials, which deals with stem cell generation, regenerative medicine, and tissue engineering. This is pretty much a playing field for life sciences in those public-private interactions. And here you see a little bit in more detail what CTMM is about: diagnosis, early detection, stratification, you will hear more about that, assessing efficacy and efficiency of the drugs. And so not only diagnosis, early diagnosis, prevention, but also the controlled delivery, image-guided drug delivery, minimal invasive procedures. And the center has a focus on cancer, cardiovascular applications, neurodegenerative disease, infectious and autoimmune disease. And the other ones I leave for the time, in time's sake. I'm going to skip and go for the next slide. So the basic theme is going from preventive to from symptomatic to preventive medicine, and because it entails not only molecular diagnostic technology but also imaging, it encompasses the whole range from organ all the way to the molecular level. A couple of facts. For the diagnostic, for the CTMM itself, the budget that we're running is €300 million, and that's approximately over a 5-year span of time. The way this is organized is as follows. Of those €300 million, the Dutch government provides 50%. The public institutions, so the academic institutions and some dedicated disease-oriented institutions that we have in the Netherlands, they contribute 25%, and private institutions also contribute 25%, which is not on the slide, but if you say private, then in this type of organizations, they are supposed to come up with half of the 25% is in cash, the other half is in kind. It's also a public-private partnership where it's really stimulated to have exchange of people, having academic researchers working on the benches of the industrial R&D laboratories and vice versa. In those 300 million euro is encompassed 21 consortia, and consortia is a group of private and public partners working together on a certain disease focus. The total number of partners in those 21 consortia of different partners is 107, of which 22 academic partners, 85 industrial partners, and 4 supporting foundations, for instance, the Dutch Foundation for Heart Disease and so forth. So this is pretty much the playing field that we're working with. The disease areas, like I said, 40% is oncology, 40% is in cardiovascular disease, and then we have the Alzheimer's, sepsis, and rheumatoid arthritis as dedicated areas. And we're really focusing on the large cancers and the major questions around cardiovascular disease. This is pretty much all the projects that we have distributed over those 21 big consortia. So what kind of work is being done? Just a couple of examples. This you will, from Peter van der Spek, you will hear much more about, which is a diagnostic test in leukemia, pretty much for triaging patients for either chemotherapy or bone marrow transplant. It's an important example because this particular product has been CE marked in Europe and is currently in the end stage of FDA approval. It's one of the examples where, in a collaboration between the Erasmus Medical School in Rotterdam and a startup that has been able in a relatively short amount of time to bring something to the marketplace by really very, very strong integration between those public and private partners. So this is an example of in vitro diagnostics. Another example relates more to molecular imaging, which is more close to my own field of expertise. This is from a group in Amsterdam, the Free University, together with some private partners. This is one of them who's making radiopharmaceuticals, which is the quest about to what extent can molecular imaging, in this case it's positron emission tomography, as you probably all know, a very sensitive imaging technology that can pick up concentrations of tracers in the picomolar range. To what extent can you use that in coming up with predictions for efficacy of treatments? And this example what's shown here shows a tumor which is hot on the PET because it's FDG uptake, which is shown here. Obviously, as we all know, FDG is not very specific, so the question really would be, would this patient, this particular tumor for instance, be a candidate for treatment with a very specific antibody, in this case rituximab. What this group does in the collaboration is that they can link the ligand that is responsible for the binding of rituximab. They can link that with a positron emission tracer, which in this case zirconium. It's important. Zirconium, for those that don't know, that has a fairly long half-life, so you can actually distribute it over different centers as well. And as you can see, it's actually binding very, very well to that particular target. So the answer was, well, you can give it, and then 3 months later you can go back to the less specific FDG and see that actually the tumor has been responded and now is called on the FDG PET. 2 clear examples of research that is coming out of those collaborations. Just show a couple of other ones that to give you a feel what the scope is of this type of work. This is in conjunction with Philips, where they have an MRI combined with a focused ultrasound probe. This focused ultrasound probe can, in a very, very small spot area, can increase the temperature. The temperature can be followed real time on MR. You got a sort of feedback loop, so you can steer a very small item of raised temperature across the body. Can be used directly for ablation of tissue, but the other use that is for this particular contraption is to have release of drugs by, for instance, having pharmaceuticals encapsulated in liposomes, thermosensitive liposomes, and then on an arbitrary place in the body you can release it. This is a collaboration that's going on with a spin-off that came out of NIH actually. Another idea that came out of those collaborations, this is in the area of diabetes. This is a project that works on a device that can, under the tongue, in small vasculatures, can look at the glycocalyx. So this is the glycocalyx. This is 2 micrometer this distance. So you're really looking at fairly small vessels. And what you see here is this glycocalyx is probably the very first marker of damage related to diabetes. So this is an example of very early diagnosis of the onset of diabetes. Also, Philips is working on point of care solution in small cartridges, where in a lab on a chip type of device you can look for biomarkers, and that's being used in the cardiovascular arena, in this particular case for early heart failure. Imaging in itself, in the brain, this is a group out of Leiden. They're working with ultra high field MR. There's I would say approximately 25 of those systems operational now in a clinical setting worldwide. 2 of those are in the Netherlands. As you can see here, this is the ex vivo brain of a patient, Alzheimer. All those black dots associated with amyloid plaque accumulation that contain little parts of iron, which shows up, whereas on the normal brain would look like this. So there's a clear difference and an early sort of measurement of the onset of Alzheimer. And also you can see very, very distorted in Alzheimer in a living patient, very distorted gray matter. Imaging can also be used in different areas. For instance, this is a non-contrast high-field MR image which shows in a heart. This is an animal experiment, so this is preclinical work, but readily to be transferred in the clinical setting where you can detect fibrosis in this particular heart, and then ex vivo it can be correlated with histology, where you can see this is staining for fibrosis, and this is what you can see in the imaging. The same token in human beings, as shown here, you can have very detailed examinations of plaque formation in the carotid arteries. This is the, I believe, the last example. This is about rheumatoid arthritis. It is not only technology that is being collected and worked on in this CTMM consortia, but it is also a very controlled way of coming up with certain cohorts of patients. For instance, patients with very early symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis, or in intermediate cases, or established. And those patients are then being studied with a whole spectrum of different technologies, including in the more molecular genomics arena as well as imaging. And we are approaching those same cohorts then from both a genotype and phenotype approach, and to combine those and learn more in this particular disease area, to create a platform against which new pharmaceuticals can be tested. Lastly, we also work on infrastructure. The Netherlands is recently selected in Europe as the host country for what we call EATRIS, European Advanced Translational Research Infrastructure Medicine, which is a European initiative to combine the facilities that have exquisite infrastructure to promote translational research, and since a couple of months that has been decided to host that in Amsterdam. We also have a collaboration going on with NCI in terms of building infrastructure for data exchange and data repository and so forth. I want to wrap up real quickly by just showing a lot of names of sites and institutes that are associated with this initiative. So these are the academic part and large industry, and those are all the smaller firms that have been involved. Most of them are Dutch, but not all of them. We have a couple of US-based firms there included as well. Very last slide, the disease focus again is really on the large disease areas. We have 107 public and private partners. What I have not mentioned so far is that they operate, all of them, under one contract, one model for intellectual property, which is based for clear obligation, fair rewards. Maybe offline, I'm more than happy to exchange a little bit of ideas, but what kind of model we're really using. It's fairly fair for the academic partners. And in all fairness, of the 85 private partners, I think that initially maybe you had 90 or so, and 5 of them decided not to go and work with CTM under those conditions, but the majority, even a lot of the larger companies, actually felt comfortable with going forward. 2 more things. We have a lot of emphasis on education. For instance, IP awareness creation between academic researchers, very important, and also we run simulation courses to get also academic researchers more acquainted with the private way of working. And then finally, very important also, we try, not very popular with academic researchers though, we try to invest in medical technology assessment to upfront, very early on, keep a very strong eye what the potential economic benefit could be from a certain project, and sort of feed it into academic research to keep them more focused and more attention for actually getting a real outcome of those particular projects. And that's where I would like to end, and would like to continue as Peter van der Spek to go more in detail of some of the projects.